If you're moving to Iowa, you need to know that all of Iowa is not the same. There are different pockets of Iowa, and depending on what you're looking for, you're gonna wanna know what those pockets are and what they mean for you. Luckily today, I'm taking you into the map and we're gonna show you all of the areas that encompass Iowa and help you make a better decision if you're gonna move here. So without further ado, let's hop on in to the map and I'll just give you the lay of the land and show you where Iowa is and how it can fit into your lifestyle. I have a feeling that if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you know where Iowa is, but just in case you do not, let's zoom on out and show you where Iowa is. Here is the United States, and right smack in the middle is the state of Iowa. And if we zoom in here, we can see that the outline is all around us. We'll start up here near Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is not part of Iowa, it's actually part of South Dakota. But we have a straight line all the way across the Minnesota border. And then we head on down the Mississippi, where we go all the way down here past Davenport, which is where I'm located. Right here, the Mississippi takes a turn. This is the only place in the Mississippi that it goes east and west. Otherwise, it's always going generally north and south, which I find quite interesting. But once we get past that, we can move on down here, and then we hit the Kansas border. We have a little bit of a leg there. We go straight across the Missouri. Did I say Kansas earlier? I meant to say Missouri. That's my bad. I was thinking Kansas City is right down there, but I think you get what I mean. Then we head on up the Missouri, past Omaha, past my hometown, and then all the way back. Now, I bet you didn't think I could draw that good, but luckily for me, I can trace lines pretty easily. But what does Iowa really get split up into? Well, the thing that you need to know about Iowa, I'm going to change my color here, is that there's really two different roads that you need to know about. The first main one is this one right here. It cuts the state in half and it goes right through all the way to Davenport. This is I-80. It's one of the busiest and most traveled interstates in Iowa, and it goes right through the center. Now, obviously we have that east and west interstate, but we also have another major interstate that goes north and south, and that is I-35, and it goes right through the center the other direction. So right in the center, X marks the spot, and what is that spot? Well, that is our capital of Des Moines, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but those are the two main thoroughfares. Another leg of interstate, it goes right through here. It's not super busy or well traveled, but it is something that is nice to know if you're gonna be in Iowa, because the thing that you notice about the map right now is there's a lot of open space that isn't near interstates. And that really comes into what kind of lifestyle are you thinking about when moving to the state of Iowa? I'm gonna go ahead and clear my map and show you all the other areas. And when I talk about Iowa, I do have to be specific in what types of lifestyle you're gonna be living, because there's really three main lifestyles. You can either have the city lifestyle, which is kind of self-explanatory, and then we can have the complete opposite, which is the rural type of lifestyle. And then you get something in the middle that you don't always see other places, and that is the small town living. So you have three big differences. You really got to decide which one is for you before you try to make any decision when moving to Iowa, because it can really affect what is gonna be your options. Now, when I was looking at the map earlier, you saw all that big open space. So I'm gonna show you kind of how I break Iowa down into some components, okay? So if we're looking at Iowa, my components that we look at are up here, up north, and that is at the Minnesota border, and it kind of comes down, and it basically goes along Highway 30 here and then back up. This is what I would consider North Iowa. North Iowa is a lot more rural, and a lot more small towns. There's nothing majorly big, with the exceptions of maybe Waterloo and Fort Dodge. But generally speaking, that's going to be smaller towns and more rural properties. Okay. And if we move on down and I show you the other part that I would consider, that is really kind of right through here. There's no real boundary, but if we go up through here and then across, this is what I would consider central Iowa. Now, central Iowa is going to contain most of the cities. That's where our biggest city, Des Moines, is. That's where Cedar Rapids, which is our second biggest city. That's where Davenport is, which is where I'm at. And that's another large metropolitan area. But not only that, we also have on the west side, Council Bluffs, which it's a larger city, but even more is that Omaha is right across the river in Nebraska, which is a much larger metropolitan area than just Council Bluffs. That is going to be your major cities, and that's what you want to look for. If you're looking for cities, you're going to probably be right in that center band somewhere. Now, that's a little bit of an overgeneralization, but in general, that's what you can think of when you're thinking about these different splits in Iowa. And if we switch colors once more, I like a little bit of green here. We're going to obviously talk about southern Iowa, and that is really along the border and then up to where central Iowa really stops being central Iowa. And this is again characterized by a lot of smaller towns and a lot of rural areas. Now, the exception is you have smaller towns that are a little bit on the bigger side versus North Iowa. They're usually a lot smaller than in southern Iowa, but that's relative depending on which cities you're talking about or which towns that you're talking about. Because North Iowa, you also have things like Clear Lake and Mason City, which are a little bit on the bigger side when we're talking small towns. But South Iowa, you have places like Ottumwa, Fairfield, those kinds of places. Indianola, which kind of fits in there, which is south of Des Moines. So you get things like that in South Iowa. But generally speaking, North Iowa and South Iowa are fairly similar when it comes to the makeup and the types of people that are living in those places. So now that we got our 3 different sections, clear my map, we'll zoom into North Iowa first and talk about some of the features I like about North Iowa. If we start over here on the east side of Iowa, this is what I would consider more of the rugged part of Iowa. People that are moving to this area, which I will show you generally where I'm speaking, which is, if I switch my pin here, about I-35, if we go down to Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, and then up the Mississippi. Specifically in this area right here, this is where we get a lot more rugged bluffs, more outdoorsy. There's farmland around there, yes, but you're going to get a lot more rock outcroppings, which is completely different than a lot of parts of Iowa. So a lot of people that like to be in this area are more outdoorsy. They like to go hunting, they like to go fishing, they like to go on trails and hiking, that sort of stuff. And it's a very good concentration of different pieces when it comes to that type of lifestyle. There obviously are small towns there. There's not really any big towns. The one notable town I would say in this area, if we zoom on in here, is, let me clear my map, is a place called Decorah. Now Decorah is an absolutely gorgeous place. As you can see on here, just how beautiful it can be, and that kind of hammers in the tone of the rock formations that are around. You can see they got some great pictures of this area. It's a very, very beautiful place. A buddy of mine lives close to there. He's actually in Minnesota, but whenever I go visit him, I get to go through Decorah, and it's really, really neat every single time I go there. They have a lovely little downtown. So it's a very quaint little place. A lot of people like it, again, for that outdoorsy feel. And this whole area up in northeast Iowa is really known for that. So something to think about. Now, if you're somebody that wants to be more rural, more agricultural focused, you're probably going to be around central Iowa in the fact that everything is basically a cornfield. This is really where we talk about agriculture being the number one thing going on, but it's not just central, because obviously the cities are in the central Iowa area. But if we are looking, the areas that I'm really talking about are down I-35, kind of missed Des Moines, and then over here, actually kind of missed this area too. This is actually my hometown, but then we come up here and then over. This is going to be a lot of area that is flat, agricultural, cornfields, soybean fields, everything that has to do with agriculture. You're going to have a big concentration of that in these areas. Now, thing I will say though, that doesn't mean that's everything that's there. Not everything there is just agriculture. One place that gets brought up a lot on this channel is Mason City. If I zoom in here, in Clear Lake. Mason City and Clear Lake, for some reason, the viewers of my channel love going here. They ask me questions about this all the time. And I've had some experience with Mason City specifically because my wife, she was a travel med tech, which is similar to a travel nurse in case you're not familiar. And she was working in Mason City for almost a year. So I got to visit her on several occasions. So she got to live there. Clear Lake is a really cool place, not too far from Mason City. And it seems to bring in a lot of people as far as visitors and people that don't know much about Iowa, but they really like that aspect because it is a cool lake. So those are two, I'd say, islands of cities slash small towns that people really are drawn to. Another one that people really like, and it's similar in the aspect of its visitors, is the Okoboji area. This is known as the Great Lakes of Iowa. It's Okoboji, you have Big Spirit Lake, very, very much a touristy area, but a lot of people also live in this area. In fact, when I was an engineer, I interviewed for a job up here with a company called Polaris, which if you're familiar with side-by-sides, four-wheelers, you know they are big into that, Indian motorcycles, those sorts of things. So there's obviously some industry up there, and they have a lot of people that live there, but it is very much a tourist-y type trap up there, right on the Minnesota border. So you have those two, but pretty much everywhere else is going to be very much orchestrated towards agriculture and small town living in those areas. Another great area when it comes to that rural, but maybe not so much into the agriculture, is actually my hometown area. My hometown area, in case you're familiar or have not heard, is right over here. It's basically from Sioux City all the way down to Omaha, and then you also get it along here. Basically all of this western front of Iowa is it's called the Luss Hills. The Luss Hills are a hilly area, and they're pretty big, especially for Iowa standard, but they're only found in two different locations in the entire world, and that is China and Iowa, specifically western Iowa. It's a lot more rugged. It's not as rugged as the eastern part of Iowa where you have rock outcroppings and all that, but you have a lot less density when it comes to people. My small town that I grew up in was actually located here. If I get rid of that, it was located in here and is only about 1,500 people, but we lived in the foothills of the Luss Hills and I absolutely loved it. It's a great place to be able to go hunting, fishing, all the outdoors, hiking, great place. A lot of public land in this area as well, which I kind of miss now that I live in eastern Iowa. There's not as much public land and there's a lot more people when comparing it to the area that I grew up in. So I do miss that aspect of living in western Iowa because you had a lot of public land that people got to utilize for a lot less people. So something to think about if that's gonna be for you. But if rural and small towns are not for you, you're gonna be glad that you stuck around for this part of the video because I'm gonna go through each city specifically and what they might have to offer. First one, I'm gonna go straight to where I'm located here in Davenport. Davenport is about 100,000 people, but the area that it sits in is about 400,000 people. The metro area is about 400. And the Quad Cities is what it's a part of. It's Davenport, Bettendorf, Rock Island, and Moline. Two of those are actually on the Illinois side, so that's not the point of this video, but keep that in mind. If you're gonna be moving to Davenport, you're gonna be living next to Illinois, which is a part of the metro area. Davenport is known for its industrial. It's known for some tech, not a lot, but manufacturing is a big one. In fact, that's why I moved here to begin with. I was a mechanical engineer, and I got to work in a manufacturing facility. So that's what you're looking for. They have jobs here. They're bringing in new stuff. Just in the last couple of years, they brought in Amazon. They brought in a food manufacturer. They've brought in manufacturers for plastics. So there are things going on here, and people do have jobs. Now, doesn't mean we don't have unemployment here, but if you're looking for something in manufacturing, this is a good area for that. And not too far away, up in Cedar Rapids, which is our second largest city, is very similar to what Davenport. It's got a lot of industrial, it's got a lot of manufacturing there. Quaker Oats is there. So it's very similar in that aspect, but it's a little bit of a larger city compared to Davenport, but Davenport does have the other cities supporting it. So overall, the Quad Cities, I believe, is bigger than Cedar Rapids. But the cool thing I like about Cedar Rapids is it has a lot more area for outdoors, which I like, even though you're living in a city. Personally, I like to be outdoors a lot more. Just south of there is Coralville Lake, Lake McBride. I got to go to Lake McBride one time. It was very, very cool. We had a great hike there. We had a great hike there, and it's really not too far from Cedar Rapids. And Iowa City is down here too, which is not where my alma mater is. I'm a Cyclone, not a Hawkeye, but I will give Iowa City a little bit of a shout out. They have a great hospital system there, but it's not one of the main cities that I'm going to talk about today. The other city I want to talk about is over here, which I mentioned is close to my hometown, and that is the city of Council Bluffs. It's not ginormous by any means. It's similar to Davenport, where you have the Council Bluffs city, but you have all of Omaha really helping support the metro area. So you get Council Bluffs if you want to be in Iowa, and Omaha or Nebraska if you want to be in Nebraska. So a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot more like the retail stuff. They do have some manufacturing. I know Google is there for tech. So they got some stuff going on for them. But to be honest, most of the stuff going on in Council Bluffs is very predicated on what's going on in Omaha, just because Omaha is so much bigger than what Council Bluffs is. But if we're talking cities specifically in Iowa, Des Moines is one we cannot keep out of the conversation. Des Moines is the largest in all of Iowa. It's the metro area, not just Des Moines. But I know they're going to be hitting almost 1 million people in the next few years, according to my friend that is in Des Moines. She's a realtor there. I get to talk to her every now and then, and she's great, by the way. And speaking of that, if you're moving anywhere in Iowa, because of this channel, I have connections all over. Realtors, real estate agents, everywhere. They can help you out in those areas, because to be quite honest, you don't want me helping you out in a place like Des Moines, because I don't know that market nearly as well as I know my own market. And I think it'd do you undue service if that's where you want me to help you out. But I will find you an agent, or already have my network of agents that is out there. So give me a call, send me a text, hit me up if that's something that is interesting for you. If Iowa is where you want to be, but you don't want to be in Davenport. But regardless of that, Des Moines is our largest city metro, and it does have a lot going on there. It's really outlined by I-80 and then I-235 through there. It's kind of encircled. Whenever I go through Des Moines, it's always interesting because it seems like the traffic is always the worst when I get there. That doesn't mean to say that traffic is the worst in Iowa. Iowa traffic in general is very, very calm, especially when compared to large cities like Chicago, LA, San Francisco, those types of places. Iowa is very calm compared to that. But every time I go through Des Moines, it always seems like there's more traffic than I would like to see. But Des Moines is surrounded by a lot of places like Ankeny. Ankeny's actually where my brother currently lives. They are building like crazy there. Constant new builds, constant new condos, all sorts of different things going on up there. At one time, Ankeny was the fastest growing city in all of the United States. So Ankeny's really got going, a lot of stuff going on. But you also have places like Johnston, Urbandale, Windsor Heights. Fun fact about Windsor Heights, I used to work in that area when I was going to school up in Ames, and Windsor Heights is a really nice place. I like it a lot. West Des Moines, right there. All of these cities are within the Des Moines area. That is our capital. And if you really want city life and still be in Iowa, Des Moines and the surrounding areas are where you're going to want to look, because it's going to have the most amount of city style type living than any of the other cities that I've mentioned. Not that they don't have it, but in general, it's going to be the most amount. Now, if you're moving to Iowa and you like this map video, but you want to see the boots on the ground, what it actually looks like, we do have a video about that. It's right here. But if you're moving and you need somebody to help you out, let me know. My number is popping up down below. I'd love to help you or connect you with a real estate agent that can help you in whatever market you need to be in.